You're watching the Eternal Tournament Series.
Hello and welcome back to round 3 of this Week 5 Season 6 ETS Weekly Open. I am SirRhino, and joining me in the booth is LocoPojo. How you doing?
Good. We're playing Stone Scar Flyers with Tobboo against TheSkeeJay's Rakano plate today. So it's going to be a duel of sort of aggro flying monsters. We've got Soulfire Drakes and Impending Dooms and Crimson Firemaws versus the Silver Wing Familiars and Valkyrie Enforcers with their Hammer of Mights and their Deep Forge plates. We also have that Cinder Yeti as an available Rakano upscale like little change to the Rakano deck. So it should be a little bit interesting. It's a 2 of in TheSkeeJay's list, and we'll see how it works.
Yeah, Crimson Firemaw making an appearance as well in his sideboard, as well as Soulfire. So if he wants to match Tobboo's Air Force, he'll be able to in the post board. Both these players in the 2-0 bracket, so doing well so far, fending off the Cow and Chalice menace on all sides. By taking to the skies, as you mentioned. There was some speculation that Crimson Firemaw, the 5/4 Flying Dragon, might replace Impending Doom in big Stone Scar burn lists or whatever, but here we see it complementing Impending Doom and supplanting the Bandit Queen instead, right? No Bandit Queens in Tobboo's list, just big old flyers taking to the skies, and just some solid units on the ground, just Instigator, Outlaw, Champion of Chaos, Pyro Knight as the early plays. We also don't see the 4/1 ambush either, which was something you've seen in other classic, I suppose, Stone Scar lists. This is more almost just a mid-range list that happens to be aggressively tilted, which is where Stone Scar's slowly been evolving towards.
Yeah. I always have liked the sort of value approach to Stone Scar, where you don't run the Bandit Queens and the Grenadin drones, but you just try to get each of the like extremely efficient units that Stone Scar has at pretty much every angle. Pyro Knight is just a really good 1-drop. The 2s are really, really strong as well. Champion of Chaos is one of the best 3s, even after nerfs. And with Crimson Firemaw and Impending Doom, like you just have really, really good 4s now. So it all just sort of slowly gets into the next setup. And with the Caleb's and Vara's favors there to push that extra bit of power, he should be able to get up to his 5s as fast as he possibly can.
Yeah, 6 favors total, as you alluded to, is a bit more than you used to Stone Scar deck. So really making sure that they hit their power. On the other end, TheSkeeJay's on Rakano plate. Nothing too crazy here. You did mention the 2 Cinder Yeti in the main making an appearance, and really just the sideboard getting the overhaul with Crimson Firemaw, Groundbreaker, Paladin Oathbook, just going to these big Haymaker style. Probably in a response to the rise of Armory coming back. Normally, Rakano played as a pretty bad Armory matchup. They can just kill every small unit you trot out there. So once you add more flyers, more big bodies like Groundbreaker and Soulfire Drake, that can go a long way. Don't know if we're going to see that plan in this matchup, though, as this match gets started.
Yeah, so we see Tobboo with a 3-power hand to hex pretty much everything he needs to get started. He'll be able to set down Champion of Chaos on 3. At the moment, he's just going to be suffocating and torching some of the early Rakano drops. And actually pulling removal early against the Rakano deck is really, really beneficial because it means that he can stop a lot of the war cries before they happen.
Yeah, the best policy against Rakano is don't let them get a unit to stick. But here we see a unit that might end up sticking as Silverwing Familiar comes down from TheSkeeJay. You can torch it. It's not going to kill it, though, until you torch it a second time. And see Tobboo play out the torch and maybe hope to rip a Vera's favor, but instead just finds a Crimson Firemaw.
Gonna go ahead and double torch it. I think that's a reasonable play. That thing getting a Hammer of Might on it is just very, very dangerous. And at that point, Tobboo will not be able to answer it for another couple of turns. Mm-hmm. So he's just going to set up and try and get to a position where he can very easily defend. We have Cinder Yeti coming out. I didn't see if it was warped or not, but that
was warped.
Okay. So a little bit of extra card draw for TheSkeeJay, and also a unit that trades very well with Champion of Chaos, which is good stuff.
Yep, good trade with Champion of Chaos, but instead going to opt to use the torch here and play out one of these 2 drops, I would guess. Yep, here comes Champion of Glory. That Silverwing Familiar, the threat of it getting a weapon and getting 2 torches out of Tobboo's hand is going to go a long way in this matchup. Because as we see, TheSkeeJay didn't have a weapon in hand, or at least we're trying to get SkeeJay's hand cam. I'm hoping it's set up at this point. I'm at least peeking in from time to time here. So SkeeJay finds another power, plops down the Valkyrie Enforcer so that he has control of the skies for now. Notably, Tobboo did not block any of that damage coming through either with the Crimson Fireball. Might reconsider now that it's grounded.
Tobboo's on the defensive now, which isn't necessarily too bad for him, but is not usually where you want to be when you're both the aggro. Fire Maw will defend fairly well against the Flyers, and so will Pyro Knight, but Obliterate is also a tempting choice here to just get rid of something for good. Whatever Tobboo plays, he's going to be taking a little bit of damage this turn, but if he plays the Fire Maw and the Pyro Knight, then he'll have a better set of trades next turn, depending on what SkeeJay's got left in his hand.
Yeah, Obliterate is SkeeJay out of power as far as leaving anything up. SkeeJay has 2 protects, main deck, 3 finest. So Tobboo could be thinking about that aspect of the decision making here. At the same time, Crimson Fire Maw, Pyro Knight lets you play out 2 units this turn, and also theoretically, and really the whole board.
Yeah, from here, SkeeJay may be starting to run out of gas. In aggro decks, this is about the point where you would expect most of the board is settled. Like you might see a few new units, but from here on out, it's going to be these guys sort of brawling with each other for a bit. And with the final trick of Finest Hour, each of these players can now just start like drawing a lot of extra power as well. So there's a lot of potential for this to be decided by what the top decks are.
Well, SkeeJay has control of the skies unless Tobboo uses Obliterate on that. Crucially, block the 2/2 flyer instead of the 3/3 flyer with Crimson Fire Maw. So even though the Crimson Fire Maw died to Finest Hour, at least the 2/2 flyer also died. If he had blocked the 3/3, you would have just lost the fire.
Or activate the Pyro Knight here.
Yeah, that's the choice here. Is do you take out the flyer or do you activate the Pyro Knight? You already have a unit that's big enough to block these 3/3s and 3/2s on the ground, so it might just be take out the flying threat before it gets. We see top.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Like he is going to go for the Obliterate, the Valkyrie Enforcer off the top, shutting down the Pyro Knight. Unfortunately, that's a lot of extra value there. So now Rakano Outlaw is his next option, but it only trades with the 2/3. So he's going to be taking 3 a turn from the Valkyrie Enforcer, and every little bit of damage helps, especially since SkeeJay is trying to slowly walk himself up towards a plate.
Yeah, Valkyrie Enforcer is still a good card after all time. It's still just a 3/3 flyer for 3. One hell of an upside, right? Shutting down the Pyro. Tobboo's looking for some sort of answer to it. SkeeJay is just to buff up any of these Champion of Glories or up the clock of the Enforcer.
As far as we have a really, really solid board for SkeeJay. Tobboo's in a lot of trouble. Stonescar does not traditionally deal with lots of units very well, which means that whatever it is that SkeeJay's got, he's pretty likely to keep most of it in attacks. So Tobboo can do some defensive play and actually set up the Fire Maw, but he's instead just going to scoop. That'll be enough.
Yeah, simply too much damage coming through, too many. Tobboo scoops it up, and crucially, a lot of that game can go back to that decision where the Silverwing Familiar came down to 8-2 torches, right? Because we just saw what Tobboo got beaten down by there. A whole lot of units that died to torch. And that's the threat of Silverwing Familiar getting a weapon, even when SkeeJay never drew a weapon that game. Really, really important game.
Pretty powerful. From there, we have like a fairly good setup. Like overall, the Stonescar deck is a little bit more oriented towards the mid-range, and SkeeJay just had a few more tricks. The Valkyrie Enforcer was capable of shutting down some things that it basically really wanted to shut down. SkeeJay could never generate the Crimson Fire Maws to push aggro and get that extra damage out faster. So yeah, it just kind of ended up pretty rough for him.
Yep, so here we go, going to sideboards, and we'll see what the players opt to do. Again, maybe SkeeJay also tries to of Tobboo bring in Crimson Fire Maws of his. I like the extra protect coming in as well. There's a third one available.
Yeah, the extra protects could be fairly useful. Like we have a reasonable amount of setup there. He can roll in cards like Groundbreaker as defensive units that don't respond to Vanquish or Torch. I actually really like Groundbreaker here. It is probably one of his best ways to defend himself on the board, on the ground. However, he does need for Tobboo, it's going to be more like just stuff that's not going to do him a lot of good here. He has the Suffocates that are going to be fairly relevant, but there's only one of those. The Dark Returns allow him to get back a lot of units that get killed by Torch and also make them immune to Torch, and I think that's pretty relevant. But I'm not sure if Rapid Shot's doing a lot for him, and Statuary Maiden is traditionally pretty good against Rakano. Probably a pretty good include here.
Yeah, I don't think I like the plan. Just might be a little too slow. It's like, oh, I'm playing a unit and then it's die and then returning it. It might just be too finicky there. And but we'll see if that ends up coming in. I definitely think that once play it in some number. Surprised if she doesn't weigh in. You mentioned Groundbreaker as a possible side in for SkeeJay. I don't quite see it, especially because if you're going to try and use it for defense, it doesn't do a very good job of against all of the dragons that was using to actually kill you. It's really only blocking the outlaws and so I think SkeeJay is going to try and stay the beatdowns, try and stay low to the ground and get under Tobboo's, I don't want to say big and clunky, but just flying force, right? Just curve under what Tobboo's trying to do and win that.
Thinking the Groundbreakers are actually a little bit better on Stone Scar's side, but there aren't any in the Stone Scar sideboard. So it is like SkeeJay's already got sort of the beatdown going, so he doesn't need the Groundbreakers to win. They're certainly a reasonable card, but not so great against what you would call a Stone Scar flyer stack. So with 12 very, very large flyers that need to be dealt with, that's probably not the card that comes in.
Yeah, so crucially here, Tobboo gets to be on the play this game. That's always a useful thing to have. Has the one drop, but so does SkeeJay. Dueling 2/1s here, staring down.
Yeah, it's looking pretty exciting and should be pretty cool to see exactly what ends up happening as these two get back into their game. So beyond that, we have like a pretty decent amount of setup. I don't know, there's not too much that I'd say is going to be tremendously influential on the outcome of this game. Both players' sides are more oriented towards dealing with very specific problems than to dealing with aggro in particular. So I'd still say that SkeeJay's favored to win this one.
Yeah, we'll have to see how it plays out. SkeeJay has the double Ronin start. Only a Finest Hour to push them past this Argent Port Instigator, as Tobboo now is debating what to do here. Has a Suffocate and an Instigator and an Obliterated hand, so pretty good lineup against Rakano, all things considered. It's really a question of what kind of follow-up SkeeJay is going to have here. And by holding up this Finest Hour, we could see it get used against Suffocate when Tobboo goes for it, if Tobboo decides to use Suffocate.
So, there is only one Suffocate either, like in the setup. Oh, but yeah, okay, we've got Tobboo with the Suffocate here. So with the Argent Port Instigators, that Suffocate seems like a really good setup. It's just so good to get that extra damage in and rush in with the Instigators. This is the kind of dream aggro that Tobboo wanted to play last game, but he didn't actually end up playing much until like turn 3 or 4. So now he's actually got SkeeJay on the back foot, and I think he's going to be assuming the position of the beatdown for the rest of the game. A Caleb's favor into the Argent Port Instigators and the Pyro Knight. Like, everything's looking pretty strong there. And overall, it's looking fairly solid. Like, we just have a very, very good rush going on. Obliterate's pushing quite hard, so that's going to be looking like a pretty good setup. We have the Finest Hour on the Champion, which means that the Argent Port Instigator number 1 goes down, but still pushing in with 3 damage a turn here. That's looking fairly aggressive.
And yeah, sorry about that. I am now back. My mic was having some issues. They should be fixed. We'll see. But thanks for covering all that action. As you said, Finest Hour kind of getting the blowouts there. But the there's still a board here for Tobboo. TheSkeeJay missing power just means going to keep finding more and more fuel for this fire as Oni Ronin comes out here and the assault continues. Tobboo finds an Annihilate. That's a useful card. Hits every unit in the TheSkeeJay's deck other than Champion of Glory. So certainly a valuable card to have here as Tobboo continues to apply the pressure, but holding back the Pyro Knight.
Yeah, it's interesting that he held back the Pyro Knight last time, since he didn't actually end up blocking with it. I think he wants to keep it alive against Oni Ronin so he can upgrade it to that 6/5. That's a tough gamble because he is like kind of forced into a position where he gets to allow TheSkeeJay to just get Warcry after Warcry and potentially find his big unit.
Yeah.
But with the Annihilate in Tobboo's hand, I don't think he's too worried about that particular aspect of the game.
Yeah, and now top deck's a Champion of Chaos, so gets to cleanly annihilate this Fire Maul as TheSkeeJay opted to not play one of the Hammer of Mights in his hand, instead play the Dragon. Annihilate takes out that Dragon, gets to play down a Champion of Chaos, and TheSkeeJay does not have a good way out of this mess.
Champion of Chaos means that TheSkeeJay just doesn't have good answers. He can vanquish, he can get more Warcries, but he needs something huge, and he definitely doesn't have it.
Yeah, the draw for the turn was a Seat, and those two hammers. Doesn't matter how big you make an Oni Ronin, that deadly plus overwhelm was just going to force through lethal, especially with the instigator triggers backing it up. So there we have it.
It's about as close to a burn spell as you can get on a unit. It's a really nasty card. So yeah, just wraps that up, and now it's 1-1. So looking pretty good. I'm not sure if either player will go into any sideboard exchanges at this point. Certainly they both have a pretty even hand here, so they're doing okay.
Yeah, we'll see if they do any bit of adjusting, but yeah, they haven't sent out the match challenge yet, so we're still waiting on that. But yeah, tied up, and really, again, a lot of it's gonna come down to who gets the play, who gets the draw, and then exactly how does the removal line up. Right, Torch, Annihilate, Suffocate, all being really huge for Tobboo there, just in terms of how efficient that removal is and how much of TheSkeeJay's deck it hits.
So very big for Tobboo just to be able to play a bunch of 1 and 2 drops. Last time around, he did not get access to any of his early game, but the Argenport Instigators match up extremely well against a lot of the Warcry units and really push damage when you've got removal, which is very important for Tobboo and for the whole setup in particular. So whoever gets to be the beatdown has a higher chance of winning. Certainly, TheSkeeJay's deck has those like Deep Forge plates to give you sort of an offensive and a defensive setup. Champion of Glory does a similar job, but if you end up in just even trades, it's going to be about who gets the most threats and who gets them down faster.
Yep. And here we go into game 3 to decider. I'm interested to see if after that game, TheSkeeJay reconsidered bringing in the Fire Mauls and maybe went back to basically his original plan, just with the extra protect, because it felt a little slow there, honestly. But here we see nothing on turn 1 or 2 from TheSkeeJay. So Tobboo gets to get on the board first, despite being on the draw with the Argenport Instigator showing up.
Instigator into Silverwing Familiar. Tobboo actually has double Vara's favors for this, and he doesn't have anything better to do this turn, so he might go for that. However, his first Vara's favor doesn't really set up anything, and if TheSkeeJay has a Hammer of Might to follow up, then he's going to need to find an Annihilate or something better.
Yeah, but there's nothing really else for Tobboo to do on this turn. His hand is all 4 and 5 drops, so the singular Vara's Favor comes out to at least pop the Aegis on Silverwing Familiar, get that Shadow Sigil in hand, and Tobboo's going to be curving out great here. I mean, Crimson Firemaw into Soulfire Drake is already something Tobboo, or I guess Tobboo doesn't have that 5th power yet, but at least double Crimson Firemaw or something like that. Speaking of
another Crimson Firemaw,
yeah,
straight on the board. So the question is, do you let someone else's Crimson Firemaw go in order to try and hit back? I think with the TheSkeeJay, you don't really want to do that because there's a chance of a Justice into a Valkyrie Enforcer, but Tobboo is definitely going to be having to play Crimson Firemaw this turn, so we'll see what he ends up doing.
Yeah, Tobboo could have just done double favor again to take out the Silverwing Familiar, but I think you got to slam the Firemaw there, and TheSkeeJay has the Vanquish to deal with it. And
that's 6 damage plus 7 from the Instigator. Not looking great.
Yeah.
Vara's favor,
Whew.
Tobboo really wants to play Vara's favor here, but he doesn't have a better answer. So he can set down Soulfire Drake defensively and try and give his units flying in charge, although that makes them vulnerable to Torch. He can set
Yeah.
down Fire Maul, which is the safer play. He can set down Impending Doom, which is a very similar trade that allows him to get Fire Maul later and means he takes less damage from Impending Doom overall, but he's on the defense and it's getting pretty rough.
Yeah, and TheSkeeJay currently doesn't have a great follow-up to this board, even though he has a good board. Both of his cards in hand are double Justice. We got a Valkyrie Enforcer and a Deep Forge Plate there, and we see doesn't hit a Justice Source here as the Crimson Fire Maul is the only thing that comes in. Tobboo trades off and takes an extra ping from that Argenport Instigator, but at least Fire Maul's not getting anything. Oh, we see it was a Diplomatic Seal. Can't use that to get a Justice Source here.
Yeah, he's in much better shape now, Tobboo. He gets the Vara's favor onto the
yeah.
Oni Ronin, and Crimson Fire Maul comes out, or he can just play Soulfire Drake and start running in.
I see favor coming out on the bird here. Just don't let that Silverwing Familiar get a chance to get a weapon. Your opponent isn't on double Justice yet, but who knows? Their hand could be a bunch of Deep Forge Plates. So I think we're going to see Vera's favor on the bird plus a Fire Maul, but maybe Tobboo goes with the aggressive line of the Soulfire Drake.
With the Instigator, or he can leave it be after he has the Fire Maul down. There's the risk of a Trick getting more damage in on his face, and he's getting a little low. But at the same time, he basically just needs to get TheSkeeJay into that same position so that he can take advantage of cards like Champion of Chaos. So we'll see exactly what ends up happening here. Here comes the Crimson Fire Maul. And do we see an attack from the Instigator? Looks like he might be staying put.
Yeah, I think I like holding on Instigator and just getting the job done with the Flyers. This way, even if the TheSkeeJay's playing something like, or draws another Vanquish here, you still have a good blocker. And boy, does killing that Familiar pay off, as we see TheSkeeJay does find the Justice Source. So no plate for the Familiar, although the plate's still available, just no Familiar for the plate, I guess, as Valkyrie Enforcer comes down, takes the Fire Maul out of the skies, and Tobboo draws Power for turn.
Yeah, Power for turn isn't good for him, but he does have Caleb's favor into Soulfire Drake, and Soulfire Drake is probably not going anywhere. It's definitely not going to get silenced, so he might force the block from the Valkyrie Enforcer. That'll make the Deep Forge Plate a lot less threatening, but overall, like, Deep Forge Plate is such a good card in this matchup. It's going to be pretty hard for Tobboo to push the remaining damage through.
Yeah, I think we're going to see Tobboo, slam the dragon and goes full-on A-Space. Even the Instigators coming in. Going to make TheSkeeJay figure out the right blocks. Hiding the Caleb's favor for now. That 2 damage might end up being really important depending on how TheSkeeJay blocks here. And we see the double block come down on the Fire Maul, which I'm going to guess means this Valkyrie Force is blocking nothing, as he needs a good Deep Forge Plate target.
Yep. So Tobboo's going to be forced into a position where he either has to block with the Soulfire Drake or attack with it. I think attacking with it makes the most sense. Like, even after the Deep Forge Plate comes down, Tobboo can push with it, try and get that extra bit of damage, but most likely just secure that extra charge unit. The problem is that he doesn't have a good way to deal with the Deep Forge Plate. Like, he needs Annihilate.
Yep, Tobboo really needs to find Annihilate. Hasn't drawn one yet this game, but finds an Impending Doom, which gives a double block for the Valkyrie Enforcer, but and we'll get him a little bit low, but that's better than whiffing.
Yeah, I think he stays put. A Vanquish kills him, but it's worth it to try.
Yep. So right now, TheSkeeJay has his clock in play, which is Impending Doom. Right now, if nothing changes, Tobboo will die. But we'll see what TheSkeeJay ends up drawing and whether or not that makes him want to attack with Enforcer. And I spy with my little eye another Crimson Fire Maul as the draw for the TheSkeeJay with the cost of 0. Doesn't really matter here, but still fun to see.
Yeah, filling the board with more flyers is not bad for him. Any sort of combat trick is just lethal. Like a Finest Hour here would be 2 dead units plus the entire setup gone. So,
all right, the attack comes in. Tobboo goes down to 3. A lethal Fire Maul takes to the skies, and Tobboo draws a Flying Instigator. Hey, you can at least chump block the Crimson Fire Maul for a turn.
Yeah, he gets to play the Instigator here, and like, I wonder if Tobboo should have bluffed with the other Instigator. Like, it's such a risky play regardless, but like, He'd be nothing like a torture of Aura's favor,
Yeah.
so that wouldn't work out terribly well.
All right, SkeeJay swings in. The draw for a turn is Protect. Tobboo goes down to 1, and yet
It's not good enough.
And Suffocate doesn't do it. And it looks like SkeeJay will get the match here.
A solid 2-1. Both players super evenly matched. The aggro went very well. We see the Suffocate Seppuku, and Protect doesn't work. SkeeJay, that doesn't work. Yeah, just nope.
Can't
he
save
still gets it.
So 1 damage goes to Tobboo's face. And yeah, SkeeJay takes it. The Crimson Fire Maul boarded in, takes to the skies, and takes down the match for the SkeeJay, grabbing it 2-1 over Tobboo.
Very good set of rounds. I think the aggro really progressed differently in all of those games. Each player had an opportunity to go into their 3s and 4s and to play down their ideal 1, 2, 3, 4 curve. And you saw some pretty cool interaction in the third round when both players were just basically knocking each other's units down and getting really, really close, played some of their biggest units and biggest threats, and it progressed in about the way that you'd expect. So SkeeJay got the victory just by a hair, and I think it was very well deserved.
Yep, Tobboo with maybe a slightly better top deck. Like we said, one of those Annihilate showing up could have brought it in their favor, but can't always get what you want in card games. And SkeeJay, I guess, did get what he wanted at least and takes it down. So before we get ready for the next round, we're going to do a little chit-chat about some of the new cards from the Tale of Horus Traver. In case you've been living under the proverbial rock this week, you may have missed out on the fact that a new adventure/campaign came out called The Tale of Horus Traver, and with it, 23 new Eternal cards got added to the available constructed pool. And we've been seeing their effects already all over the place in today's ETS. And we're going to break down some of the standouts, at least for today's ETS. So we're not going to go over all the cards from the Tale of Horus Traver, more just the ones that have been showing up in droves so far today. Although I think there are a lot more cards to explore that we won't cover here. So first up is the Minotaurs, right? Minotaur Tribal is now definitely a thing. Minotaur Armory, Minotaur Tribal. It's all thanks to Tavrod Auric Broker, or as some like to call him, Tavgod Auric Broken. So I bet you break down some of these Minotaurs and some of the decks that are coming here today.
Yeah, he's a pretty strong setup. We've seen a lot of Minotaur decks just being brought to the list. 8 were bringing Tavrod. We had 3 with Auric Interrogator and 1 with Copperhall Paladin, a card that I really do quite like a lot. But you still have a lot of different Minotaur decks out there, and Tavrod is just such a powerful card for setting up and getting you into a really good situation on turn 5. Basically just gives Argenport a real mid-range archetype, and so we're seeing a ton of fun things out of that.
Yeah, there's all sorts of shells that you can put him in, but as we're seeing here today, it's mostly just Armory and Minotaur Tribal, and an occasional spots where he's just in straight up Minotaur Argenport kind of mid-range, right? He works in all of them, and so does kind of his partner in crime, the Interrogator. I really, really like this card. It's just a 4/3 for 3, but that's okay up front. But once you buff its attack in any way, it's going to start drawing you extra cards. So these Minotaur and just Argenport or shadow-based decks, they kind of lacked great ways to get card advantage and card draw. You really had to play something like Sleepless Night or start splashing for card draw, Smuggler Stash or whatever. Now these Minotaurs are just bringing you your card draw engines between Tavrod and Auric Interrogator. That's what these Argenport decks were missing in terms of just keeping the cards flowing once you got to these mid-range grindy matchups. So yeah, lots of Tavrod, lots of Interrogator, lots of just a little bit of Copperhall Paladin. I think we might see more of that card moving forward. But already the Minotaurs making their presence felt just in this very first week of the ETS. So next up, as far as
all the Argenport players, or all the non-Argenport players on turn 5, just sitting there praying, don't have a cow, man.
Don't have a cow, man. Yeah, Tavgod's a tough steer to deal with as far as just that 5/7 endurance body. Just that's not a lot of things that deal with it. So up next, We are, I guess. All right, this is a spicy little slide here, titled "The Death of Chalice?" Question mark. Yeah, it's greatly exaggerated, as Rekenner, our slide maker, likes to put it here. Vision of Austerity and Unexpected Results are, I would say sideboard tech cards, right? As it says here. Not going to see it a whole lot in the main deck, but more targeted hate. Vision of Austerity shows up in a few decks as a way to really hit Chalice, but it can hit other relics as well, right?
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting card. Basically, if you're hitting Chalice or Obelisk, then you're getting the best value out of it that you really, really want to have. Austerity doesn't hit many relics above 4. Like, people aren't really playing Stronghold Visage. There aren't a lot of relics above 4 that are anything other than a Zindal's Gift, which is a cursed relic, so it doesn't really work very well to play it on yourself.
It still works,
I guess
though.
you can, you can negate the Zindal's Gift, and then you just can't play your own Zindal's Gift, which is probably fine because you're Huru. So it's not a bad way to get rid of a Zindal's Gift, which means it's a little flexible. I think this card probably could just be a one of in some of these decks, but it is entirely in the sideboard of the 5 that have been brought.
Right, yeah. I think the only time you're going to see this in the main deck is for a really specific medic call, and also if you're playing Celestial Omen main board, right? Something like that, where you can just put it as part of your Silver Bullet package. And also, Unexpected Results is another kind of hate card / sideboard card where it can target spells in your opponent's deck. Notably, though, it doesn't target the spells in their hand. So if you're trying to use this to hate on a Harsh Rule, if they have a Harsh Rule still in their hand, it's not exactly going to work. So you're mostly going to see this being brought in against maybe the Control Mirrors, where you want to take out Channel the Tempest or something like that. Or have it right away, or others.
Chalice specifically, just because Chalice has 2 win cons and they're both very big spells.
Right.
And oftentimes your opponent's only running one of them as a 4 of. So if you Unexpected Results the Channel or you Unexpected Results the Parliament, not only have you gotten yourself a mild win con in the form of 4 firebombs, but you also pick up your opponent's best card and prevent them from ever casting it again. So it's a pretty reasonable setup. I think that the lack of board advantage means that it is something that tends to be in sideboard. And right now we only have it in the sideboard of a Gunsmith Herald combo deck, which traditionally don't do that well in the ETS. So we'll see if it gets a little bit more love and Skycrag gets a little bit more love in future tournaments.
It's also competing, or maybe complementing Rain of Frogs, where Rain of Frogs doesn't always hit exactly what you want, but at least it can hit cards in the hand as well. So you can get a little bit of pseudo card advantage from Rain of Frogs, whereas Unexpected Results, if you really want to hit the target, but they already have 2 or 3 of it in your hand, you're going to be pretty unhappy with the results of that card.
Oh, I spent a lot of time knocking myself down to silver with Rain of Frogs Unexpected Results decks. It was a delightful set of streams. I do like this card a lot. I think it's got a little bit of kick to it. The fact that it doesn't provide any card or board advantage is something to really be concerned with, but in tournaments in specific, getting rid of a very specific spell can be a really good way to knock a deck out.
I'm still developing the Black Iron Manacles, Fallen Oni, Rain of Frogs, Unexpected Results prison deck, but it's gonna take some time for that to really have a metagame impact, I think.
It's not so much a prison as a fire pit.
Something like that. Speaking of fire pits, we've got this next slide of fiery haymakers, right? Some little tweaks to some decks, or major tweaks, just cards that are making their impact felt. We've got a trio here: Power Stone, Crimson Firemaw, Cinder Yeti, all role players that are causing not the meta to warp like maybe Tavrod, where you really have to keep your removal suite in mind, but more just changing the threats and changing how some of these decks approach their own game plan, not necessarily how you're addressing them.
Yeah, we're seeing so we have 15 different decks who brought Crimson Firemaw, and I'm actually really surprised by that. There's more decks that brought Firemaw than brought Tavrod, and as a card, Firemaw has been behaving very well for me, but it also I haven't found it to be an absolute game changer for Fire. It definitely fills a slot and allows Fire to do cooler mid-range things, and it does those very well. But there were some mid-range things already being done in those slots. We saw Impending Doom there with Skycrag. Rakano had Hammer of Might. So yeah, I think it's really interesting. It's a very powerful card, to be certain. I'm very surprised that it's the most represented card out of Forest.
Yeah, I am not surprised at all, just because it is a really powerful mono faction card, right? To play Tavrod, you got to be in dual faction, whereas Crimson Fire Maul slots right into Praxis mid, especially the ones that care about 5 attack. You can turn it into more of, just give you something else to do on 4, which, you know, Praxis was playing Praxis Displacer before, but maybe just taking to the skies with Crimson Fire Maul is slightly better, especially if you make the 5 attack matters another way to bring back Dawnwalkers. We're also seeing it. We just saw it in Tobboo's deck with Stone Scar Flyers. We've been seeing it in Skycrag. We'll see it in Rakano. So just any deck playing Fire is playing Fire Maul either in the main or the side right now, just because it's a big, awesome, flashy dragon, and it's living up to the hype. But the little Yeti that could here. Oh,
we also got the little Yeti that could. That's true. Cinder Yeti is a card that is seeing just a little bit of play in Skycrag and also some Stone Scar and Rakano. We saw it in SkeeJay's Rakano deck, and it behaves pretty well there. He didn't actually get the exhaust out of it, but the warp meant that he had one extra threat on the board in a situation where that really mattered. So getting some kind of extra card draw into Rakano, I think in particular, is really interesting, and the Overwhelm is very meaningful in that particular set because Warcry plus Overwhelm tends to go really well together, and there aren't that many ways to do it right now.
Yeah, any card with Warp always ends up being like better than it first appears, just because it's so many different things going on with Cinder Yeti. And a fun little factor, I believe just as many decks showed up with Cinder Yeti as they did Tavrod. I believe the tally was somewhere around 8 or 9 decks with Cinder Yeti. So it's making its self felt here. Again, because it's a fire card, it can go into Rakano, it can go into Skycrag, it can go into Stone Scar. So it's just showing up in a lot of different shells, where Fire really never had that kind of impact on the 3-drop slot. You really didn't see it outside of dual faction cards.
The card I've had the most success with, Power Stone, it's only seen in 3 decks today. It is a Praxis mid-range lists only. No big Cambrai or Legion mid-range, but only 2 of those have been brought anyways, and perhaps they should be running Power Stone, but they aren't yet. So I think that card's really interesting. I expect to see a lot more of it in future tournaments. Big Cambrai is probably going to be back in some form. It always comes back, so it's like a bad penny. And from there, I think not seeing it here is not too big a deal, but I would be surprised if it does not show up in future tournaments.
Yeah, I'm not too shocked. Like, generally with a new metagame, like when we get this many powerful cards, a lot of players like to default towards aggro. It's just easier to figure out those builds, where Power Stone's a bit trickier of a card. Like, yes, it goes into time mid-range, but what kind of time mid-range? Notably, there's 0 Xenon decks basically in this tournament today. I think there's 0 copies of Banish, so we haven't seen anything like that. And as you said, only 1 big Cambrai deck. But I do think Power Stone will definitely have an effect on how Cambrai can be built, or Legion can be built, or really any time deck can be built. As I've been pretty impressed by it. I was a little surprised to see, or I guess only some Praxis decks are bringing it, not a ton, but there's just going to be all kinds of different flavors of terms of how you want to accelerate your game plan and how you want to get to where you're going. But Power Stone is a really safe approach with it.
Yeah, so lots of people experimenting with new strategies. If you expect that kind of thing, then you definitely go by the day 9 rule, which is that when people are doing wibbly and strange things and you don't quite understand what's going to be happening or have a good way to predict it, the simplest solution is to just go kill them. So like straight aggression is being favored here, and I think that works out really well.
Yep, so it looks like we're getting the next match set up, getting ready for round 3. So round 4. So we're going to take a really, really, really short break here and get back with more Eternal action in just a moment.
See you then, folks.